Our next episode opens on scenes of Asuka at school while we hear all of the boys in the class talking about how beautiful the overseas student is. All this while we hear the distinct sound of camera flashes going on, and it's clear that somebody's taking some sort of voyeuristic photos of Asuka. Cut immediately to Toji and Kensuke selling said photos, and we get an answer to the question of who's taking these photos almost immediately, along with a quip about how when you take a photo of Asuka, you don't have to deal with her attitude. Elsewhere in the school, Asuka tells Shinji that he needs to be happier because the prettiest girl in school wants to talk to him, and then she asks about the other one, which Shinji doesn't initially understand, but Asuka clarifies she wants to talk to the first child, who is Rei Ayanami. They find Rei sitting at a bench reading a book, and as Asuka approaches, her shadow blocks the book, and Rei turns to get more sunlight so she can keep reading. Asuka introduces herself to Rei, saying that they should be friends, and Rei replies with, "What for?" which is par for the course with Rei from what we've seen, but this is Asuka's first time interacting with her. Asuka's only response is that being friends would be convenient since they're coworkers. We also get a little side quip from Toji that maybe only weirdos get to be Eva pilots. Back at Nerve, Ritsuko is going over the data from the latest Angel battle, when Kaji wraps his arms around her and comments that a woman with a mole like a tear on her cheek is destined to a life full of heartache and sorrow. Before the scene can get too lovey-dovey, you pan up and you see Misato just pressed against the glass, heavy breathing at the two sitting here. Now, this line is pretty great. I looked for a very long time to see if there was some sort of other quote that this is referencing or some other archetype that I didn't know about. And I'm pretty sure that Anno, the script writers, and the translators just made this up. And I kid you not, I used this line in college when discussing film in class and pointing out, oh, that character's got a mole like a tear on their cheek. They're going to be doomed to heartache and sorrow. Then they are, and you're like, hey, it works out. I wonder if this is more of a normal convention, but I'm pretty sure it literally comes from Evangelion. And the best part is when your classmates and the teacher all kind of nod and, oh, yeah, like you're quoting Joseph Campbell or something. Back to Misato interrupting these two catching up, we suddenly get the red alert and we've got a new angel to deal with. We cut immediately to Units 1 and 2 in the big airplane things heading to the site of the angel, and Asuka is upset that she's not allowed to do this alone, and in their little Discord conversation there, Shinji just lets her know that this is SOP. But I mean, the first SOP was throw kid who knows not what he does into robot and see what happens. So I don't know that we should be praising the SOP just because it's useful this time. They land at the beach, and as the angel approaches, Asuka says she's going to take care of it and ladies first. And I just love the way that Shinji shouts, "Don't talk to me like that, you dumb rookie!" Because he really sounds like somebody who's not used to talking like that and thinks this is the line he needs to say to sort of assert his dominance, but isn't used to that role. It just plays really well. In a matter of moments, Asuka slices the angel in half, and everyone's excited. I mean, angel cut in half. It's dead, right? Right? The two halves of the angel that Asuka has now separated suddenly morph into two angels that both look the same, and we cut to images of Unit 1 and 2 just smashed into the ground like an Animaniacs character. We learned that they were able to use an N2 mine to be able to damage the angel enough that they have some time while it repairs. We then hear from the old guy who's been behind Captain Akari the entire time, complaining about how this is a huge humiliation for Nerve. Now they're going to have to redraw the maps because they dropped another N2 mine. And then he tells Asuka and Shinji that they need to work together. And as they start crabappling about it, he just shouts, "Enough!" and hits a little button and just descends on like a tiny personal elevator. I cannot get over these little elevators. They are all over the place. They're always right where someone needs them, and they always are just this little like, I'm moving on, beep, and they just disappear. The little one that Ikari took in the beginning was like, oh yeah, he's got his own little elevator to go to a place, but now in just a room full of chairs, one of the chairs is an elevator chair, and he can just be like, I'm done with this meeting, boop, and just he's gone. Over in Misato's office, she's dealing with a desk full of paperwork, and when Ritsuko comes in, she asks if she has any idea, any plan. And the plan we're given, it was actually developed by Kaji. Misato's not super excited about looking at Kaji's plan, but at this point it's humans for survival, so she's going to look at the data. Back at home, Shinji finds that the halls and the rooms are just packed with moving boxes. Asuka quickly informs Shinji that she will now be moving in with Misato and she will be the upgraded version, and then proceeds to complain about how Japanese doors don't have locks. And as she's opening and closing the doors to demonstrate, Misato shows up and tells her that's because the Japanese think of the needs of others first. With Misato home, we now learn that the plan is for the two of them to live together so they can coordinate a double-sided attack against the Angel. Since there's two Angels with two cores now, the idea is that you've got to attack both of them exactly at the same time. And in order to get the pilots to sync up well enough, they need to live together. Asuka thinks that a boy and a girl shouldn't live under the same roof past the age of 7, which is a weirdly specific age to choose. And we then learn that we have about 6 days for them to get in sync for the attack. We meet up with Kensuke and Toji in the elevator, and the class rep shows up, the three of them kind of complaining about Asuka and Shinji not showing up to school. And they're all surprised when they push the doorbell on the same door. Shinji and Asuka open the door in matching 80s leotards and are talking in sync and complaining about how they're training. Toji and Kensuke's reaction is that they're horrified because Shinji has betrayed them and is now working buddy-buddy with Asuka. And class rep just shouts that they are living in sin. Misato and Rei show up, and we immediately cut to everybody sitting around the table eating and laughing at the situation, while Shinji and Asuka are playing some sort of DDR twister game to sync up their movements. After failing whatever this test is, Asuka starts complaining that she can't sync with Shinji because he's too slow or he's an idiot, and Misato tells Rei, "Why don't you give it a shot?" And Rei quietly gets up and goes over, and they proceed to do it almost perfectly. Asuka is visibly upset because Rei is now showing her up, and Misato responds, "Maybe I should change the pilots to Rei and Shinji." Asuka then storms off shouting no as she slams the door. Class rep shouts at Shinji, accusing him of making Asuka cry. But I mean, isn't it kind of Misato's fault that Asuka's crying? Because Asuka's not strong enough to deal with someone else potentially doing better than her, and she knows that, so she's going to show her that Rei could do it, so why don't you just knuckle down and get it done? I don't know. I thought it was weird that the class rep's first response was to be mad at Shinji. Shinji catches up to Asuka in a convenience store, and Asuka tells him that she has to pilot the Eva, that she really has no choice. And the two of them finish their convenience store food on the roof while Asuka is shouting that she's gonna get it done and show Misato and Rei how stupid they are. We then begin the training montage where they're playing the DDR game, they're brushing their teeth, they're doing everything throughout their day perfectly in sync while they're still sort of fighting with each other at the same time. It's really well done. We then cut to bedtime, and because Misato is out for the day, Asuka takes her futon and actually moves it into the closet, declaring that the doors of the closet are the impenetrable walls of Jericho, which weren't exactly impenetrable. I mean, they did famously come tumbling down, so. In the middle of the night, while Shinji is listening to his music player, Asuka gets up to go use the bathroom, and on her way back, instead of going to her futon in the closet behind her walls of Jericho, she actually lays down right next to Shinji on his futon, causing him to begin playing his music and fast forward. And he gets closer and closer to this girl who has now laid down in his futon, as though he was gonna kiss her, almost, when suddenly she cries, "Mama," and we see a little tear, and Shinji just realizes that she's as much a little kid as he is. Meanwhile, back at work, we catch up with Misato and Kaji making out in an elevator, and as Misato tells him, "No, don't do that," he responds with, "Should I listen to your words or your lips?" Kaji sees, Kaji likes, Kaji takes. We got it, okay? So if you were confused as to whether or not Kaji was interested in Misato or Ritsuko, we now know that the answer is definitely both. And really, we're just kind of being shown that Kaji is the sort of caricature of the womanizing James Bond. So the time for the battle against the Angel finally approaches, and the two disengage their power cords, and the timer starts ticking. We then get some beautiful piano music while they're doing their flips and kicks and punches and everything in perfect sync and unison. And they finally deliver a crazy kick to the core of the two angels that merge into one, and then it cracks and they did it. And the angel blows up, and we get no time to question whether or not the Avas survive, even though we know the Avas have to survive, and we immediately see the two units at the bottom of this crater. Shinji exits his unit, and suddenly there's a ringing, like a phone call ringing, and there's a literal landline phone in the Ava unit. And I mean, it's kind of crazy that Dick Tracy came out in the 40s where we had, watch communicators, we had Star Trek. Like, why do we have a landline phone that's inside some part of this robot so that we can talk to each other? It's a weird thing to put in there. We then cut back to the old guy who complains about these dang kids, and the episode ends. Just like we were talking about at the end of episode 8, this entire episode shows us what it's like when Asuka, this prideful, wants to do things, wants to be in charge, needs to pilot the Ava, gets injected into our little group where Shinji, he's piloting the Ava because he kind of has to, and Rei, who we don't really know her motivation either, and to see how Asuka interacts and changes the two. Obviously, we see that Rei is virtually unfazed, continues to just follow orders, and it's kind of fun to see Shinji try to take on a role as a superior, even though it is not something he does naturally. Overall, it's a pretty straightforward episode that just says Kaji and Ritsuko and Misato are all connected in some way, and here's our new character that's working with the team, and now they've overcome working together, and they're able to defeat an angel. So not a lot of the mysteries, not a lot of the questions, so no real reason to break out the whiteboard just yet. Let's see if we learn more about Adam or the angels or anything else for that matter in the next one.